In today's video, we are going to look at the most brutal police arrests ever recorded. When the police arrest someone, they have to be careful of their conduct. This is because they are representing the state and they can easily abuse their power. Nevertheless, there are some cops out there that go overboard and end up causing serious injuries or even death. Well, without further ado, let's get into it. Number 10. George Floyd. George Floyd was a 46-year-old African-American man who sadly passed away on May 25, 2020. He was arrested by the police in Minneapolis, Minnesota for allegedly using a counterfeit $20 bill at a grocery store. The police officers involved were Derek Chauvin, Tu Tao, J. Alexander Quang, and Thomas Lang. According to the police report, Floyd was uncooperative while being taken into custody. But despite this, Chauvin managed to get him into the police car. However, a few minutes later, he was instructed to lie down on the ground facing downwards with his hands cuffed behind his back. Although Floyd claimed that he could not breathe, the officers ignored this and pressed down on him with their knees. One of the officers even had his knee on Floyd's neck for over 9 minutes. Sadly, this resulted in his death. This incident sparked massive protests across the United States and even other parts of the world. A post-mortem examination revealed that Floyd died from cardiopulmonary arrest while being restrained by the police. Number 9. Eric Garner. Eric Garner was an African-American man who died on July 17, 2014. He was wanted by the police for selling loose cigarettes without a license. When they finally caught up with him, he was told to put his hands up and then he was put into a chokehold. Despite Garner repeatedly pleading that he could not breathe, the police officer did not stop. After a while, he became unresponsive and was taken to a nearby hospital where he was pronounced dead. The autopsy results showed that Garner's death was caused by compression of his chest and neck, which led to his heart stopping. The police officer responsible for his death was Daniel Pontalio. He was fired a few days later, but no criminal charges were filed against him. Number 8. Oscar Grant. On New Year's Eve in 2009, 22-year-old Oscar Grant was riding on a BART train with his girlfriend and friends. They were celebrating the new year when a fight broke out on the train. Security guards asked them to move to another train car, but then they refused and decided to stay put. When the train arrived at the Fruitvale station, the police were called in. Oscar got off the train and walked away from the officers. However, one of the police officers, Johannes Messerl, shot him once in the back. The incident was captured on video by several people, and it sparked outrage across the country. An autopsy report showed that Grant's death was caused by a gunshot wound to the back. In 2011, Messerl was charged with involuntary manslaughter and was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Number 7. Michael Brown. On August 9, 2014, 18-year-old Michael Brown was shot 6 times in the back by a white police officer, Darren Wilson, in Ferguson, Missouri. Witnesses said that Brown was holding his hands up and surrendering when he was shot. However, Wilson claimed that Brown was charging at him in an aggressive manner. The incident was highly controversial and sparked protests against police brutality and racial inequality. Brown's death was ruled as a manslaughter by a grand jury. However, Wilson was not charged with any crimes. Many people believe that this was because of the blue wall of silence, which refers to the unwritten code of silence among police officers that makes it difficult to hold them accountable for their actions. Number 6. Freddie Gray. Freddie Gray was a 25-year-old African-American man who died on April 19, 2015, from injuries sustained while being arrested by the police in Baltimore, Maryland. Gray was arrested after the police found a switchblade in his possession. During the arrest, Gray suffered a spinal injury and went into a coma. He died a week later. The incident sparked protests and unrest in Baltimore as people demanded justice for Gray. 6 police officers were charged in connection with Gray's death. However, only one of them, William Porter, was found guilty of misconduct. This case highlighted the need for police reform and accountability. Number 5. John Crawford. John Crawford III was a 26-year-old African-American man who was shot and killed by a police officer on August 11, 2013, in Beaver Creek, Ohio. Crawford was shopping in an electronics store when the police received a call about a man waving a gun around inside the store. When the police arrived, they saw Crawford holding a rifle that was later found to be a BB gun. Despite this, the police officer shot Crawford multiple times, killing him. The incident was captured on surveillance video, and it sparked outrage across the country. A grand jury declined to charge the police officer in connection with Crawford's death. However, the incident highlighted the dangers of racial profiling and the need for police officers to receive more training in de-escalation tactics. Number 4. Sean Bell. Sean Bell was an African-American man who was shot and killed on March 2006 in Jamaica, Queens. Bell was attending his friend's bachelor party when the police approached their car because it was parked in a spot that was only for residents. When the police tried to question Bell and his friends, things escalated and the police opened fire, shooting Bell 7 times. Bell was unarmed and his friends were also not a threat to the police. Bell's death sparked protests and calls for the police officers involved to be held accountable. The incident was investigated by the district attorney and a grand jury, but no charges were filed against the police officers. Number 3. Akai Gurley. Akai Gurley was an African-American man who was shot and killed in 2014 by a police officer in Brooklyn, New York. Gurley was visiting his girlfriend's apartment when he accidentally entered a stairwell that was under construction. He encountered a police officer who was patrolling the area, and the officer shot him once in the chest. Gurley was unarmed, and the shooting was ruled as a homicide by the medical examiner. The police officer was charged with manslaughter but was acquitted in 2016. The incident sparked protests and calls for police reform in New York City. Number 2. Tamir Rice. Tamir Rice was a 12-year-old African-American boy who was shot and killed by a police officer in Cleveland, Ohio, in 2014. Rice was playing with a toy gun in a park when the police received a call about a boy pointing a real gun at people. When the police arrived, they saw Rice playing with the toy gun, and one of the officers shot him twice. Rice was unarmed, and the shooting was captured on video by a bystander. The incident sparked outrage across the country and calls for the police officers involved to be held accountable. The Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office did not file criminal charges against the police officers. However, the city of Cleveland reached a $6 million settlement with Rice's family. Number 1. Botham Jean. Botham Jean was a 26-year-old African-American man who was shot and killed by a police officer in his own apartment in 2018. Jean lived in Dallas, Texas, and the police officer who killed him, Amber Geiger, was his next-door neighbor. Geiger mistakenly entered Jean's apartment thinking it was her own and shot him multiple times. Geiger was charged with murder and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. The incident sparked outrage and calls for police reform in Dallas. That's all for now. We hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave us a comment and like the video if you want to see more content like this. Thanks for watching.